I remember there was a post you put out where you were doing, I think it was like weighted dips, and you said that you felt that your tricep development wasn't, and this is what you felt you wrote it in the post, that it took a bit of a hit when you had to stop doing dips because of a shoulder issue that you had. Is that right?
Yeah.
What was that scenario? How did you adjust around that? And where are you now?
I've had minor impingement issues probably going back over 10 years. I mean, I could tell that there was this things going on the shoulder. It was one of those things where it never really completely sidelined or handicapped me too much, but sometimes I'd have days where pressing movement or certain areas that were put a lot of stress on the anterior delt gave me issues, but I never made too much of an issue of it. In 2019, kind of leading into the Orton, I actually, prior to that contest prep, started doing some boxing. I was always interested in boxing, and I was actually getting one-on-one lessons. I absolutely loved it. It's a great workout. But especially the bag work really just started aggravating the hell out of my right shoulder. I mean, bad, to the point that I actually had to stop. And I was actually having trouble sleeping at night. I mean, I was in a fair amount of pain. It was becoming somewhat disruptive to my training. I ended up getting an MRI. I had a pretty bad bursitis on my right shoulder, some pretty bad impingement, some kind of partial tears in a couple of rotator cuff muscles. So I had to get a cortisone injection and start doing some aggressive rehab. And this was mid-prep. So I was able to completely rehab it and didn't allow it to even impact my prep. Had a successful prep that year, but had to alter my training. I got to where I could do bodyweight dips again and then kind of started to build up from there. After the season was over, I ended up getting PRP therapy on the right shoulder. It held up for a good 3 years. And then this past year, it was actually last year, had already started prep, and then that right shoulder started giving me problems again. Well, first I went in for an ultrasound, and I thought that I might be looking at another cortisone injection. The doctor's like, "You have a 2+ centimeter tear in your supraspinatus." And she's like, "You probably need to consult with a surgeon. This isn't something that you can rehab, and regenerative therapy like PRP isn't really going to be successful because you already have significant retraction there." So I did get a consult with the surgeon, and I have a lot of property where I am, and I have a lot of stuff to do during the warm weather. So I'm like, I can't have surgery right now. Let's just do an injection and see how it goes. And I got an injection last summer and I actually reached out to a physical therapist that I knew, and she helped me put together a program. And I was really religious about my rehab, and I got to where I could pretty much do everything again. And it was feeling good, and now the left shoulder is giving me issues.
No,
So now I actually just got ultrasound on this last week on the left shoulder, which the bicep tendon is in pretty gnarly shape. I'm probably going to look at getting another injection in this one to see if it makes it sustainable. Otherwise, I'm going to be looking at PRP in that shoulder. So over the course of the last several years, been able to mostly maintain the ability to do most things, but not at quite the same level that I was once doing them. So in my heyday, like from when that picture was taken, I was doing reps with a 100-pound strap to me. I would even go up to 150 pounds. I'd even at some point strap 200 pounds on to get a few reps with dips. But with the shoulder issues, it was to the point where if I could do bodyweight dips and even up to like 90 pounds strapped on, that was quite an accomplishment. So it's like, yeah, I was still doing them, but not at the level I was doing them.
you didn't have pain when you were doing the 100-pound strap to you dips for the most part, right? And then did it kind of just sneak up? It kind of just snuck up on you over time, like an accumulative.
Yeah, it snuck up over time. And then like when I did the boxing, that was something that really specifically aggravated and kind of made it a lot worse. The shoulders there's been a lot of things. When I was a freshman in college playing, I separated the right shoulder. So there's just like a lot of different types of trauma in addition to multiple decades of push-ups and presses and all kinds of stuff that's just, there's been a ton of wear and tear. So it wasn't like any acute injury or trauma. It was more of cumulative stress over a very, very, very long period of time that just started to add up and add up and add up to the point where it's like it starts to impact more and more over time.
Now, you felt that by not being able to, was it just presses in general where your tricep development and just overall development in that region kind of suffered over time because you weren't able to do any sort of presses, or were you able to work around things?
I worked around them. I felt like in 2019, I was able to bring a pretty good package to the stage. Despite that, I mean, I think if you look at certain positions, you can see maybe there wasn't the same amount of tricep thickness. The other thing, there was some other injuries. So like I had a horrible bursitis in my left elbow. And back when I played hockey, I used to get really bad bursitis. And it flared up in 2019. If you look at some of the stage pictures, like there's a side tricep shot that it looks ridiculous. It looks like there's a racquetball inside my left elbow. They drained it twice. The first time it drained, it took all this crap out. And then the second time they went to drain it, it didn't even go down. So I had to have a surgery in 2020 to remove the bursa. Well, when they went in to remove the bursa, they actually realized the tricep was torn. So the tricep right at the elbow there was actually, there was a split tear that he had to repair. So during that whole prep, my tricep was torn and I didn't even know it.
So there was no pain.
I didn't have pain from that, no. At least
Interesting.
none that I noticed. But there's no way that I was optimal, if my tricep was torn. I'm sure it was
Right.
impacting things, and to some degree, probably just adrenaline pushing through and having my mind set on a goal, and maybe it just didn't hurt as much as the other shoulder did.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, so and I don't, who knows where the issue started, but so there's been some elbow issues combined with the shoulder issues, and what it really amounted to is that like certain exercises that enable you to put a lot of stress in the musculature, I couldn't do in the same fashion. So what I ended up doing a lot of was there were certain things that I had to alter. So for instance, when I was able to do overhead presses, but I pretty much always do them with a neutral grip and with a dumbbell. So a pronated grip like this would aggravate it. I'd get a lot more impingement. If I just did dumbbell presses and just turned my hand, I was able to do them without pain or with less pain. And so like the difference would be, before I was having these issues, I was probably repping the hundreds for multiple sets. And so maybe, I was only going up to like the 80s and 85s. So over time, over a few years, that's going to have a little bit of an impact on the degree of hypertrophy that you can elicit. It's not a monumental difference, but if you continue having issues for years and you're shaving, 10 to 15% off your maximum weights on movements, it makes a difference. A lot of what I had to do with shoulders and triceps and chest over the last several years is focus on really, really high reps, because the shoulders just don't handle the really high intensity weight. That's where it tends to cause more of a problem. So I'll go up to sets 20, 25, 30 reps on a lot of stuff and just try to shuttle as much blood as I can into them.
So you feel that doing that, you've lost a little bit of overall size just from not being able to also combine the high rep work with maybe the, let's say, sub 10 repetition near max effort like you once could.
Right. Those workouts are not as multidimensional, because my standard approach for what I always like doing and what I would typically do if I was working with a client would be to work in different rep ranges, so that you're training the muscle to adapt to not only heavier loads and putting that mechanical stress on, but also getting the metabolic stress from higher rep lifts with, less rest, and doing that combination. So I think for a lot of the time when I've had these issues, not being able to do the higher intensity stuff has had some impact. I mean, it's probably easier for me to see than others, because I can sit there and look at myself and critique myself a lot. It might not be that noticeable, but there is a little bit of a difference that I can see.
Sure. To the trained eye at the professional level, I can understand. Is there ever a training session that you go into where it's like, I don't have any pain whatsoever, I feel amazing? Or are you always having to adjust things at this point? Because I think it's good for the listeners to hear how you navigate through that and still stick to your routine, because some people would just quit, right? So
I'll be real honest, a lot of days, the way I feel when I walk in the gym, I think if most people felt the way I felt, they'd be like,